Headlock, der Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Ein kleiner Disclaimer hier gleich zum Anfang. Dieses Interview wurde Anfang Februar aufgezeichnet, also deutlich vor der Corona-Krise und vor den ganzen Geschehnissen der vergangenen Wochen. In dem Sinne trotzdem viel Spaß beim Gastspiel mit Alex McCarthy und unserem Chris. Viel Spaß dabei.
Herzlich willkommen bei Headlock, dem Pro Wrestling Podcast, und auch herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe des Gastspiels. Heute, ein besonderer Gast, mit dem wir Englisch sprechen werden, denn der kommt eben aus England, der arbeitet für TalkSport und wird uns einiges über die britische Wrestling-Szene erzählen. Er war letztens beim Royal Rumble und er ist gerade so ein bisschen der Überflieger als Journalist in der Wrestling-Szene. Ihr habt ihn vielleicht auch schon auf Twitter mal gesehen. Also switche ich jetzt einfach mal ins Englische. Let me introduce you to my guest. He's a wrestling journalist for TalkSport in England. He has interviewed the biggest stars of WWE. He has trained with British Strong Style in the Performance Center. And he sucks at WWE 2K. My good friend Alex McCarthy.
How you doing, man? I was going to say, what an intro until then.
I had to do it.
Yes,
you know me.
Yeah, I'd love to. The fact that there's evidence of it, I can't even deny it.
Yeah, but maybe at the next 2K event, you can. Yeah. No.
Redeem myself.
You won't have revenge.
No, well, I'm just gonna start ignoring my kids and playing the game religiously. How about
that? Well, have fun with playing 2K20 religiously, my friend.
Yeah, you got me there.
So today we're gonna talk a little bit about your career in wrestling journalism, how it all started, how you got into it, what has changed in the last year for you, and of course we'll talk about your Royal Rumble experience and some of the interviews you had with WWE superstars.
Sure. Let's get into it.
So let's just start with a simple question. When and why did you decide that you want to work as a wrestling journalist?
I don't think it was a decision per se, because there wasn't necessarily a field dedicated to it in the UK. You'll know this yourself from Germany. Really, there was Dave Meltzer, who was kind of maybe the pioneer of that, or Bill Apter as well. But you know what I mean. Those people in the States had that industry, and then now we've got Mike Johnson, Sean Ross Sapp, Ryan Satin, and Jason Pollock, and a host of others. But it was really kept to America. We didn't really have anyone else who could do that in the other countries. So I think with the UK growing as a market and getting more and more attention, and of course the birth of NXT UK helped as well. Just more opportunities came around. I mean, I was working. When we first met, I was working for a company called Give Me Sport, as you probably recall. And for them, I was just a football writer, NBA writer at one point, a US editor. There wasn't anything that made me specifically the WWE guy. But then we would get opportunities to do things. And it was just like in the office, anyone like WWE here? And I was like, yeah, me? and there was, I'm not going to lie, there wasn't like a lot of competition. So people were just like, just give it to Alex, whatever came in for WWE. So I took it, and, and then the things that I did, the interviews and the coverage, WWE really liked, and it gained a bit of traction. We were doing good hits. And then I remember the CEO of Give Me Sport said, well, maybe you should just be our WWE editor, which to me was like a dream. Again, a job that it wasn't a job before we made it a job. So I was like, yes, of course. Like, why not? Why wouldn't I want to do that? So I did that for about 18 months of Give Me Sport, on top of maybe a year of just doing it on top of my other job. And then TalkSport kind of came knocking and said, yeah, we wouldn't mind some of those numbers on our site, because they had never really covered wrestling and they were looking to grow. Obviously, TalkSport, to anyone who doesn't know, is a massive company here in the UK. It's the biggest radio station for sport there is. The website as well has been growing exponentially. So to be able to kind of bring WWE to that was a big deal. And then with that bigger platform, again, came more opportunities. WWE have been great with wanting to work with me. So have AEW, Impact. I'm sure we'll get into the British scene, but Progress, Rev Pro, OTT. Speaking of Progress, this week I've got Cara Noir and Paul Robinson coming into the studio. So it's been really great to have that platform and have built that reputation that these companies and they want to work with me, and I've kind of been able to build up a reputation that way. But certainly the growth of the UK industry as a whole has allowed there to be a place for me in it, if that makes sense. For me to cover what's going on and be that voice. So I've been quite lucky to become, I don't know, the quote unquote not leader, but I've been able to rise and be one of the main journalists to help.
That's not brown nosing from me, but when I met you at, I think it was WrestleMania 33,
yes.
the media thing, yeah. And I listened to your interviews. It was like, damn, he should do that and not that other sports stuff.
I mean, that's kind of, like you just said, that's very nice of you to say for starters. But, I just got back from the Royal Rumble and I went out there with, I don't know if you're familiar with these guys called Cheeky Sport. They do a lot of social stuff. And the guy watched me again and he said that's really it's probably the backbone of what I've done is interviewing. And I guess it's because I ask things, and you'll know this, we're catering to us. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. we are the wrestling fan. It's things that we want to know. And it's you get some of these outlets, and I'm not trying to throw mud or anything, but of course WWE are trying to get to the biggest markets and the biggest audience possible. So when BBC or even to make it a diluted example, if I bring a superstar into the studio at TalkSport on a non-wrestling show, they're not going to ask them very interesting things. Do you know what I mean? It's it's very generic.
It's I think it's kind of difficult to get the right tone for a wrestling interview. Even if you're covering sports, it's normally when you're listening to wrestling interviews, or like maybe a couple of years ago, it was a wrestling geek just like us,
yes,
asking only geeky questions, which was kind of boring and isn't fun for the wrestlers.
Where was your interview with Ziggler? Everyone loves you and Ziggler. Where was that? Was that Orlando or New Orleans? I can't remember.
That was New Orleans. Yeah. And he really didn't like me.
It was so funny to watch. It was so good.
It was a catastrophe. Like they told me, hey, you can have this interview with Dolph Ziggler. He's really cool and something. He's just playing around the game with some kid who won some competition, and after that, he's open for your interview, and we'll get you a nice place where you can do that and stuff. And I was like, yeah, cool. I'm taking this opportunity. And then I came there. And Dolph Ziggler didn't know that he had an interview.
And wasn't it like a hallway?
Yeah. And we didn't have a room or something where we could sit down and have the interview. We were just standing in that damn hallway with like 30 people around us who were taking pictures of Dolph and this geeky pale guy who was interviewing him. And oh my God.
So good that it went viral. Funny German guy. You were labelled.
I already got insults that were worse than that.
Yes,
so I take funny German guy. But yeah, just like I said, it's difficult to get the tone right for a wrestling interview. You have this geeky smart mark stuff, or you have just people that are trying to make some clown shows or some funny stuff only, and it's not really about wrestling or the wrestling persona. Yeah, but I really admired your interviews when you were doing that.
Thank you.
Because you have the talent to make real fun interviews that you make the wrestlers laugh or at least smile.
Yeah.
Even Dean Ambrose, and he was some tougher son of a bitch.
Yeah, he was.
But you also get information out of it. And I always wanted to do this kind of interviews, but I had to stick to gaming questions because of my outlet.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's what I mean. When I first started with Give Me Sport, a lot of what they wanted to do socially maybe didn't match up with me, the wrestling fan, right? So the things that I would really want to ask them, I'd maybe get, I don't know. Because this is bearing in mind, obviously, the people listening to this won't know, but what do we get? Like 5 minutes at these junkets, tops? Sometimes less. So you've got to cram in everything you want to do with these superstars, as they're being kind of wheeled around to you like sheep. So 2 minutes of that is maybe going to be me asking exactly what I want to. And depending on who you're talking to, again, as you'll know, they'll either give you a really long, elaborate answer or a very, and then that's pretty much your question gone. And then I had to do the social stuff that my company really wanted. So, that it is a difficult game. And like you said, it is hard. I remember someone saying to me in Texas, when the Rumble I was just gone, they were like, "Oh, Bayley, she was so like kayfabe. She wouldn't give me much." But then when I spoke to her, I didn't really get that vibe. Like, obviously, she would say kayfabe things every now and again about being a role model, but she would answer the question. So I guess it depends on your approach, how knowledgeable you appear, and like you said, I've seen people use insider terms gratuitously, like over and jobber and things like that. That tends to rub them the wrong way too. So I guess it's having that respect barrier, but knowing what you're talking about and asking the right questions. I really do feel that you can only really get that with time. You learn.
Yeah, sure. It also depends on which wrestler you're interviewing.
Absolutely, you have to judge case by case basis.
I had an interview with Natalia in 2018.
Yep.
And oh my god, she was so boring in those answers. I think she's a really nice person. Nothing against her, but she didn't know how to answer my, again, gaming questions. So it was like WWE public relations speaking to me.
I know what you mean. I've had a few, though, where, again, I've tried to do, and funny enough, we've mentioned him earlier. I had Dolph Ziggler SummerSlam for, 2017, maybe? Or maybe 18. Either way, I can't remember. It was in New York. And
17.
Yeah, and it was so we did it at like the World Trade Center, and it was like a Make-A-Wish thing. And I spoke to him there, and he was very sarcastic or borderline patronizing in some of his answers. And I thought that wasn't great, because I was a big Ziggler fan, like maybe around 2013, 14, like a lot of us were. So I was a bit disappointed. I was a bit like, oh, that wasn't what I expected it to be. But then I spoke to him last November. So when they came over to the UK, I sat down with him for like a full 50 minutes, and he was great. But not just good, like great, like really giving. So I was like, and obviously he had no idea. Like when he met me, he was just like, "Oh, nice to meet you." I was thinking, okay, you don't remember, but I just thought, God, it's like night and day. And I had the same thing with Samoa Joe. I think it was actually in Orlando. Was it? Maybe. There's so many, they blend together. But I think it was in Orlando. And I tried doing one of those funny-ish features that Give Me Sport wanted me to do. And again, it fell so flat. Like some of those interviews are like, 7:30 in the morning? And
it's kind of brave.
Yeah.
Like doing some funny stuff with Samoa Joe.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? So like 7:30 in the morning. I'm trying to do some really like borderline insulting, funny stuff, and he was clearly like not in the mood for it. I was like, okay, well, and I came away. I said to Bobby, man, I don't even know. For anyone who doesn't know, he's a guy who used to be my video guy. I was like, I don't even think we can use any of that. That was awful. But then I sat down with him at the Rumble last weekend, and again, it was great. So it's all based on when you get them and what you ask them. It really is.
I remember actually that you were warning me before the interview with Ziggler.
Yes.
I told you about it, and you were like, when I asked you, how is he? You were like, he can be quite sarcastic.
Yeah. Again, he's another one who like he obviously the way he took my questions at that time was probably in a marky way. He thought, God, who is this guy? But when we sat down, he seemed to. Well, I've probably grown as an interviewer in that time, but he seemed to appreciate a lot more. Like one of the questions I asked him was nearly identical, right? Like asking about the Sting debut and the big Survivor Series performance and how it led nowhere. But he gave me literally two polar opposite answers. So it's so strange.
Yeah, but you can also have the total opposite, like Cesaro.
Oh, yeah.
When you're interviewing him, he's always really nice and funny.
Yeah, but he loves you. He loves you because of the German.
Sometimes he's like really silly in those interviews.
Yes.
When you give him the opportunities. I had a short interview with him where he was really silly, and one with Sheamus, who was playing the grumpy part all the time.
Yes.
And then I had an interview with Cesaro at the Performance Center, and he noticed that I knew a lot of his past in European wrestling when I asked him about his team with Chris Hero in Ring of Honor and in German Stampede Wrestling, or his time with Ares, for example. And you could see him switching his way in the interview. He wasn't a funny guy. All of a sudden, he was telling funny anecdotes of his time in European indie wrestling.
Yeah.
Like he told me that he was, I think he was a pretty young wrestler at that time, and one of the promoters sent him and the other Swiss guys from Swiss Money Holding a promo they should do in the ring, and it was like 25 pages or something.
Wow.
and the entire car ride from Switzerland to Germany to the location, they tried to memorize this promo. And it took them like 20 minutes in the ring before someone like cut them off to finish it.
Great heat. To be fair though, like you said with Cesaro, like for someone who a lot of fans are under the impression WWE doesn't think has a great personality, they wheel him out for media all the time. I've had him maybe 4 or 5 times at this point, as recently with Shinsuke, and like you said, he definitely has got a good personality. I know it doesn't always translate that easily for everyone to TV, but he does. And I exactly what you just said as well. I had him with Sheamus a couple of times, and both times Sheamus was like the overtly can't be bothered with this, whereas Cesaro was like playing the nice guy, like, oh, come on, let's do the interview. So but then having said that about Sheamus, I interviewed him on his own 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he was just like I said with Ziggler, like a new man, just come back from his injury and stuff, and had a lot to say. So it's certainly the great thing about being like the editor of the US side on TalkSport and thus WWE is that I decide. Do you know what I mean? Like the editorial decision is mine. So if I want to take wrestling in a serious tone or insider stuff, then I can. And I feel like that's benefited me anyway when being able to talk to the talent.
Actually, when you mentioned Sheamus, it's it's kind of wonderful that he has the ability to insult you with a straight face, and you just have to love him for it.
Yes, yes. I mean, also he's massive. So,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, like he is. Again, like, I've spoken to him off camera when I've interviewed him as well, and he is a good guy. He just likes to have a laugh, so you kind of have to take it with a pinch of salt, I think.
Yeah, I remember when I first met him with Cesaro at I think New Orleans.
Yes,
I had the interview. Yeah. I had my Ringkampf shirt on, and he came to me and said, "Oh, Ringkampf, I thought it says Mein Kampf." and I was like, "Oh."
Well, he's a big because when he comes into TalkSport, he's a big Liverpool fan, right? And we share an office. I don't know how commonly known this is. We share an office with the Sun newspaper because the company who owns us both, we're part of that umbrella. So although we don't do any work together, we're in the same building. And so Sheamus, being a Liverpool fan, refused to speak to the Sun when he came in, and he was just like, so it worked out great for me. I got more time with him, but yeah, like they didn't know who would and who wouldn't talk to the Sun. So, but Sheamus, to be fair to any Liverpool fans listening, he stood by his beliefs.
Now I admire him even more.
Yeah,
we were talking about wrestling journalism,
right?
In general, and you just mentioned like Ryan Satin or Chris Van Vliet. I don't know if I pronounce it right. I think with the wrestling boom of the last like 5 or 6 years, the wrestling journalism also evolved.
Yes,
because competent guys like Ryan or Chris really got to the surface of wrestling journalism, and they're acknowledged for it. But I think it's a daily struggle to be seen as a legit wrestling journalist by the fans or by other people. Like when there are still people like Brad Shepard around.
Boo! Brad Shepard.
Yeah. I mean, they undermine their wrestling journalism with their bullshit, right?
Right. I mean, they do. I mean, it's exactly right what you just said. At a very basic ground level, it's very hard to be taken seriously in a business that's, for want of a better term, fake. Right. So a lot of what we're doing and how fluid it is, and the very nature, it's meant to surprise you and change pace, so it's very hard to report things on that basis. And you get all these people that go, "Oh, and this guy's going to get a push, or they're going to do this with this storyline, or whatever. This person's going to return on this day," and then they don't. And then Brad Shepard, as an example, he reported that Sasha Banks was coming back like 8-9 times before she actually came back, and that's not me being grandiose. That's not me plucking a number. That's literally was that many times.
Yeah, but finally he was right.
Well, exactly. And then he'll tweet you like, "I told you all," and all these suckers, and you're like, "But how can you?" So yeah, I mean, I don't take people like that seriously at all. And in fact, a follower inboxed me yesterday, saying that he had said something on his podcast about me and Ryan because of the Riddle and Lesnar report, and I didn't even bother to tweet about it, to be honest. I just thought, what's the point? He is not, as far as I'm concerned, he is not a part of this industry. He is not a peer. Do you know what I mean? He's not. Yeah. He's not even worth the time. He's just someone who, the way you can. I mean, if he did what he did, like starting rumors and just fake news that has been called out by multiple wrestlers, is one thing, but the fact that he's so combative and disrespectful to people, that's the kind of guy I'd punch in the face if I see him in the flesh. So don't behave how you would on Twitter. Do you know what I can't stand that. People who behave a way on Twitter that they wouldn't do to people in the flesh. Like, nobody would be that obnoxious and disrespectful. So if anyone who follows me should hopefully know, I like to treat people the way I'd like to be treated, and everyone's opinion is welcome. And I'm just trying to, I'm a wrestling fan, but I'm a journalist too. So I like to, I like to do a lot of my work in the interviews. Let wrestlers give you their point of view on these things that have happened and these reports. If you want to believe them after that point, that's up to you. But at least you've got it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. Does it actually make you angry that someone like him is just spreading rumors and gets recognized for it, while you and Ryan and the others are really building your reputation on facts and good journalism?
Oh, man. It's annoying. Like, I don't know where we're at now, but at one point he had 5,000 or something followers. And I don't know how many I had. I think I've got more than that now, but I had 2,000 or something at the time. And I remember looking at him thinking, there are people that believe he's rubbish. And that was the most infuriating. Like, you're looking at the comments or whatever, and there are people that actually believe that this is a real guy. I mean, he's a real guy, but you know what I mean, a real journalist. And I just thought, that's very upsetting that he's leading people astray, or he has a Patreon, he's taking people's money. It's awful when you think about it like that. But like I said, and I listed them off earlier, there are a lot of guys who have worked hard to do good work in this industry. From being involved with it so long now, and I've put in the work. I go to shows, as you would have seen, NXT UK shows, shows in America, indie show, whatever. I've gone to many shows, interviewed many wrestlers now, where you build up the contacts to be credible, to be a source, and that's kind of half of it, where you get to know people at the networks, as I do at BT Sport, and did do at ITV and Sky and places like that, and you get it from multiple ways. This idea that somebody like Brad Shepherd, who or even I don't know, let's just say that there was a guy in England as well. They don't have Pat Patterson on speed dial telling them what's going to happen, right? That's just it's not realistic to think that Bruce Pritchard or Vince, or people close to Vince are regularly giving away what's going on. It's not realistic, right? So people need to kind of get their expectations in line with that. Because, I mean, people like Ryan Satin, he's really good on contracts. And the proof is in the pudding that way. Sean Ross Sapp, when it comes to injuries and speaking to the actual talent, he's very good at that. So these are people that you can invest in, and there's a good track record as to why you should. But I feel like fans just need to, because the sexiest part of wrestling news are the rumors, right? And I can tell you that because that's what the clicks are on the website. I know that. I know that rumours and, fantasy booking and things of that nature, I know that's what fans enjoy. But people take advantage of that in the journalism world, some of them anyway. And that is what really bothers me, I would say.
I actually know what you mean. It's quite the same with gaming journalism. You can do really good work and write articles that go more into depth about a game. Yeah. And then there's some guy who's just writing rubbish about it. and people click on his news, and you think, why am I doing this? There was some guy who actually faked it. He lied about playing Horizon Zero Dawn before it was released.
Okay.
And he wrote something like the dinosaur robots and their babies.
Sounds great already.
There are no dinosaur robots babies. You fucking moron. How can robots make babies?
But what did you do? Did you challenge him, or do you just kind of, you have to take it, right?
Yeah, you have to take it. I think it's you don't just have to build your reputation. You have to fight for it, and
yes,
the best way to do that is just to to do good work.
Yeah, you have to let your body of work speak for itself. And the thing is, when you look at a guy like, we're just going to keep using Brad Shepherd as an example here, but eventually people realise, like, nobody gets away with it forever because you can't, right? Like when there's news spread like that, there's no way. And people have clocked on now that Brad Shepherd tweets a load of rubbish. I think even in the Royal Rumble, he's not even smart enough to delete it, but he has like, oh, I've heard this person's coming back, this person, and he tries and like hides it a little bit with, oh, I've heard rumours or it's possible. Well, what do you mean? It is or it isn't? They're not. WWE aren't sitting there on a Sunday, the day of the Rumble, going, well, we might call Victoria. Like it's stupid. It is so stupid. So it's that's what kind of bugs me about these things. But like I said, eventually their name does get stained because of these kind of bogus reporting, basically. So you just have to kind of persevere, I think, is the best way. You keep doing your work and eventually it'll all work out.
I think last week you tweeted about meeting Christian at your hotel.
Oh my God, yes I did.
And you had to remain professional. Well, how hard is it to stay professional and not mark out? And is it even necessary for wrestling journalists that they, keep it straight and not ask for pictures?
So this is my take on it. And when I look at so the profession of journalism as a whole is very evolving, I think, like you said earlier. So maybe 10 years ago, you had to play it extremely straight. And it was, if you was a football journalist, you couldn't let people know who you supported. You couldn't let them know that, because then you'd be open to all kinds of criticism in terms of your reports and favoritism, bias. So, but I think with wrestling being entertainment and the age we're in now, I think that it's expected you would be a fan. Nobody is just a straight journalist in the field of wrestling. Like, surely,
I mean, would it be even possible to be a wrestling journalist without being a fan?
Surely you're the fan first. So I think that's part of it. I've always asked for photos. This is before I even had ambitions of being professional. And that's just because I wanted them. But as I've got older, I just lie. I just say, oh, can I have a photo for social? Because obviously, like, when I tweet out the interview, I want a photo with it and stuff. But it's for me. It's for me. And sometimes I straight up tell them that. I said to Samoa Joe the other day, I'm not going to bother lying to you. I just would quite like a photo. And he said, yeah, whatever. Like, they always say yes. So I don't think, like with Christian, for instance, I've never had an interview with him or anything like that. And he was a big favourite of mine back in the day. So it was kind of weird because I walked around the corner and he's got a hat on. So you know what I mean? You have to kind of work out that it actually is him. And he was taller than I expected as well. So I'm like, oh shit. Like, so, but by the time I've realised it's Christian, I'm like maybe 5 yards away. And I'm like, what do I say? I haven't really had the time. So then it becomes like I know him, like, oh, hey, Christian. And he was like, hey, man. And I was like, oh, yeah, just wanted to let you know I'm a big fan. And he went, oh, cool. And I went, yeah, take it easy. Like, as if I'm going to meet him for a coffee later. Take it easy, mate. And he was just like, yeah, cool. And that was it. Like, we didn't even stop to say this. It was in passing. So, like, I'm going to the elevator and he was just walking into the lobby. Like, no, we didn't even stop for this exchange. But at the same time, I felt I have to say something. What if I never see him again? But yeah, that I feel like every journalist, like you've obviously been with me at events. I'm not going to say what a real fan is, but I'm a singing, chanting fan. I mean, I get into the show, I enjoy it. I'm a fan. This is a good story. I remember meeting Christian and saying, I can't remember I think the first show we went together was a takeover, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was, right? And I believe it was a takeover that had Revival, AOP, and DIY in a triple threat.
Yeah. I think so. And the debut of Aleister Black.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And I just remember saying to Christian, like, "Oh, I'm gonna go mad tonight. Like, I can't wait for this match." And you were like, "Yeah, I don't really chant anymore." You were like, I'm not that much of a singer. And then I think the first match was the tag, or it was the second, one or the other. And we were both just going batshit crazy. And I was like, "I told you, Christian! I told you!" And then we just had an amazing weekend from there. But yeah, the point of that story is that we're all fans at heart, and you can't take that. I don't think you can take that out of people.
So what's the difference between doing interviews? Because you were invited by 2K, right, and often overlooked by the big superstars, and now suddenly you're sitting in a room with Triple H.
Oh dear! I mean, yeah, like you said, it's a part of the process, I guess. You and you hear superstars say this line sometimes, but it's about building equity, as they say. So you have to put in the time and put in the effort. And I've been doing this now. Bearing in mind, I met Christian, met you 3 years ago this Mania. So I've been doing it for obviously about 4 years now. And that's a lot of time to build trust. And so the WWE obviously are familiar with what I do at this point. And then on top of that, I've moved on to a bigger outlet, which is better for them. And it's just more opportunities come your way. I get people inboxing me on Twitter now, setting stuff up, where 2 years ago it never happened. But I get Progress and Ring of Honor and AEW, people like that kind of making offers there. I even spoke to Drew McIntyre on the same night he won the Rumble. I messaged him saying congratulations and all that stuff, and he actually hit me back and he was like, "Yeah, let me talk to Ali McCoist on TalkSport." And I was like, "Yeah, I can make that happen, sure." So it's like, again, it's just build. I feel like I've gained a margin of respect over the time, and when it comes to the Triple H thing, I think since day one, I've kind of been around NXT UK, the tapings, the tournament, the Royal Albert Hall, and all of that stuff, and Download Festival. I've been to it all, and it's almost a reward, I guess. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't. This is the first time I've ever really speculated this, but I'm going to say it. I'll give you an exclusive question. I had on the same day as the Triple H interview, you might remember, we had New Japan in London, and we had AEW had All Out, right? Big day in professional wrestling. The day I had Triple H was the day that NXT UK Cardiff takeover. Big day in professional wrestling. I was offered to go to AEW because I'd been to Double or Nothing in Vegas, and they wanted me to go out there again and do interviews and stuff. And I basically said this to WWE. I was like, "Is what we're going to have the weekend in Cardiff?" Because I need to kind of weigh up what's more worth my time. And don't get me wrong, Chicago sounded a lot better than Cardiff. at a very basic level, it sounded like a better trip. WWE were like, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "Well, I'd love to just sit down with Triple H for because the original idea was to get him into TalkSport, which meant I probably wouldn't have even been the one to talk to him. He would have gone on to one of the shows with one of the big hosts." Mm-hmm. But then that couldn't happen. So they were like, "Well, come to Cardiff and you can sit down with him for 20, 25 minutes. And obviously, you know this as a wrestling fan. How many times has Triple H sat down for 20, 25 minutes with anyone? Handful, I would say.
Yeah,
so
probably.
I was like, right, well, that's my mind made up right there then. I better go to Cardiff. And that was it, really. Once WWE kind of made me that offer. And I don't know that they would have done that if I didn't have the offer to go to AEW, and they might have offered it to me anyway. I'm not saying that they were spurred on by that, but it certainly pushed the envelope a little bit for me when I said, "Well, I could go here or I could go there." So there you go.
I actually remember when we both first met Triple H. I think 2017 at the Performance Center.
Yes,
when there was also this media panel thing, and Triple H was like right in front of us, but he didn't bother just looking at us because he was guided to all the big media like ESPN and stuff.
We were small fish, Christian. Small fish.
And none of us was brave enough to just say hi.
No, I know. But do you know what? I've got a good story about that day, and I wonder if you'll remember. They brought Andrade round. Do you remember this? Andrade was being led around. So anyone who can't picture this in their head, you're in the Performance Center, and there's just a long line of journalists, right? Like every outlet kind of behind this like picket line almost, and they lead them by, and there was like Finn Balor, Jason Jordan, I remember being there, Bailey, I think, was there. There was there was a whole load of them, and one who got led round was Andrade, and he had a translator with him. And bearing in mind, this is 2017. I'm full transparency. I didn't know who Andrade was. He hadn't been on NXT TV really at that point, and he had a translator. And I just remember thinking like, and they, when you're doing this, as Christian will be able to attest, they have like a rep who walks by and says, "Do you want to speak to them or not?" And I remember turning down Andrade very awkwardly turning him down just because I knew nothing about him, and I was like, "Oh no!" And he's kind of standing there, and I'm feeling a bit bad, and then like 2 years later, I'm like a big fan of Andrade. I'm like, "Oh man, like what?" And it was only a couple of weeks ago when he came over with Charlotte for the BT party that I actually got to like redeem myself and speak to him. And kind of, he speaks much better English now too. But that bothered me for years. Do you remember Andrade being wheeled around? I don't know if you spoke to him or not. Is what I'm asking.
I didn't even see him there.
Oh well, maybe they were putting it on me, putting the pressure on me. Oh yeah, it was awful.
Did he recognize you?
No, thank God.
When you're working a normal day in the office, and I think there are a lot of rumors you have to work with.
Right.
How do you check the sources on that? How do you like sort out the bullshit?
Right. So I'm going to use. There's different ways. So WWE are obviously always available for comment, but that's not always your best bet because obviously they'll give you a company line more often than not. But when it depends on the circumstance, who it concerns, what company. And you can hear things, I know, obviously, like in terms of the UK, I know a lot of people now. So what was interesting with the Lesnar and Riddle backstage altercation, I mean, they say altercation, basically Lesnar just said something to Riddle. It's not a row. It's not a fight. But, with that in Texas, so I had a source inbox me who's never been wrong so far, telling me what he'd heard and what was said, and I didn't run with it. I thought to myself, I don't know if that's enough for a story like this. And then I spoke to people, I spoke to a WWE official and a wrestler who basically confirmed what the first guy said. And I thought, okay, well, that's good. That's it's 3 separate accounts of what's that all match up, and they're all very different accounts too. It's not like an official, and I can't obviously say what the source, the first source is, and then a wrestler. That's 3 very different guys who are giving you the same stuff. So, to me, I think it's always about double checking. If you took every rumor at face value, you'd become a laughing stock very quick because look at Twitter; it's full of it, isn't it? Like every day, there's all kinds of different. Just if we're recording this on a Tuesday. Just yesterday, people are talking about Samoa Joe being suspended for drugs, which seemed WWE vehemently denied. Other people are speculating it's Rey Mysterio, and that's why he took that hammerlock DDT on Raw last night. It's the rumors just fly around, and if you jump on that, trying to look credible, it's going to be a long road. So I don't know. I always try and do my best to either ask the source directly because I get such regular interviews, or I find a way to ask people that would have knowledge of that situation. But I don't always post what I get told. That's probably the simplest answer. I think if you did, people would be able to wade through a lot of what you say.
Sure. So let's get a little bit into the British wrestling scene.
Yeah.
You trained with British Strong Style.
I did.
How and why?
So when the Performance Centre opened, I actually expressed an interest of doing something like that. With WWE, I kind of pitched it almost. But obviously it didn't really make sense at the time of what they were trying to do. And I think they had some tapings coming up in maybe Plymouth or Hull. I can't remember. Some sexy British location like that anyway. And I just remember them saying, well, you can come by the Performance Centre and interview a few people. And I was like, well, what about if I came and actually trained with them? That would be some unique, decent content. And after some back and forths, like you obviously you can imagine, it didn't just get greenlit like that.
Yeah, sure. I even got blacklisted for a short while by WWE, so I know how serious they are.
What did you do for that to happen, Christian?
I asked Becky Lynch why she is not allowed to perform in Saudi Arabia, even though she's the man.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I like it, but yeah, that'll do it. So anyway, they said yes. And although we weren't like taking bumps per se, it's not as if they were giving me the bitter end or anything. But it was basically working out with Pete, Tyler, and Trent, and the main WWE, strength and conditioning coach, Sean Hayes. I had to reach for his name there, Sean Hayes. And it was great. Honestly, it was an amazing experience. The facility is unbelievable. I mean, you've seen the one in Orlando. It's not quite to the big standards of that, but it is amazing and well refined. And it was awesome. The next step in that, I actually spoke to Eddie Dennis, for those who are aware, the big Welsh guy in NXT. Just before Christmas, and my plan is to go and do some actual wrestling training, so with the view of having at least a match, right? Just one. So I want to, and I'm sure you fantasize about this at some point, Christian, but the idea of having a match.
I had some wrestling training, and I'm pretty sure I'll never have a match. And I don't want that. I was actually Fabian Eichner was in the ring with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he chopped my breast bloody.
But isn't it cool though? Like, I feel like if we're gonna, and obviously I've got a phone-in show on TalkSport now where I kind of give my opinions on wrestling, and I almost feel that to do that really. At a high, respectable level, that you need to know and experience what it's like. And whether I have a match or not, just to do the training with Eddie Dennis at the Knuckle Locks gym in Brixton, London, I feel it would give me a better insight into what people go through, what different things are like. So it's something that I've always wanted to do. Is
you have to take a bump to know how much it hurts.
Yes, exactly. Because I don't think people really appreciate. I mean, I know that just from speaking to wrestlers, but you can't know that without actually doing it. So I think this summer we've talked about, because once my football season's over on Sundays and I've got weekends clear, we're talking about me doing some classes there. So that is the aim. I have no ambitions of being an actual wrestler.
Because, come on!
My body is terrible from football. It's broken down. But I do want to understand that process a little better, and I do think it's very interesting, very exciting to me to learn more of that inside stuff. And also, when you interview people, they'll probably have another layer of intrigue or respect knowing that you've done that, especially the British guys. So I'm exploring that later on this year. But it was awesome to do it with the British Strong Style guys and see how the WWE guys, they don't. Once upon a time, they trained to get big, but now it's much more functional. You know what I mean? Look at Cesaro. Yeah, I mean he's big, right? But he's functionally strong. Like the guy is, he's one of them who's like his grip would be like. Do you know what I mean? Ridiculous.
Yes. And you can't even process how ripped Cesaro is until you meet him in person.
No, I can't express that enough.
So big.
Yes, I can't express that enough. He's much bigger than you think. Just his overall body as well. Like, you and I, if you look at yourself, anyone listening right now, look at your arm and push your finger into your skin, and it gives, right? and it might even have like a little white light or whatever come back. Cesaro is like granite. The man is like just actual stone, and he's got veins that are actively trying to escape his body. He is massive. Anyone you speak to, I've spoken to so many superstars who all say he's literally the strongest, most freakish human being you'll ever meet.
Yeah, same with Matt Riddle when you meet him in person.
Wow, yeah.
Other physique, but just as big.
Yeah,
and impressive. Like when I first saw him, it was at WXW in Germany, and someone in my row just said like, "Wow, he looks like a Greek god."
You know what he does, and he's ripped to shreds. But he also has. So I met him at Download last year, and we had like a really good interview, like 15, 20 minutes, I think. He might be the most confident in himself person I've ever met.
Yeah, like, he's not playing a gimmick.
No,
he's just Matt Riddle.
yeah. He literally couldn't give a shit, right, at all. He couldn't, and he's not bothered by anyone. It's quite incredible because when you look at his, like you said, his gimmick per se, and he's this laid back. He is that laid back because he just knows like whatever happens, he'll be all right. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Anybody shoots on him, nope. It's going to be fine.
I think this entire UFC experience he had taught him just like you have so much talent, you work so much, you'll be fine. Then.
Yeah, exactly. You got to remember he was on a 5-win streak before he got fired. I know that 2 of those were overturned because of marijuana or cannabis, whatever you want to say. But the bottom line is, you watch those fights, he won them. So don't get it twisted. He's a dangerous man. Like if he wanted to hurt someone, he could.
Yeah, and he's also a very self-reflecting guy. He knows what to do to get better.
Yes,
I remember him at the media panel at 16 Karat Gold in 2018.
Right,
and he was asked what he has to do to get even better, and he said, "My selling. I have to work to get my selling better because when you're doing MMA, you're trained not to show any pain.
Yes,
and in wrestling, you have to show that you're in pain, although you might be not. And yes. I think you can see his months in NXT." The show there that he learned quite a bit about selling. He's one of the top guys now, without a doubt.
Yeah, I agree, and I honestly think he's destined for huge things. I really do. I do think that WWE know what they have with him. I know. I've been told by many people, including the people, Triple H himself. Triple H and Shawn Michaels were very high on Matt Riddle. So.
Matt Riddle is also very high.
I mean, yeah, when isn't he? But yeah, I mean, again, big things for Matt Riddle, and I'm a big fan, no doubt.
So yeah, British Strong Style. What them guys? How were they when they trained you?
Yeah, really cool. Like, I mean, I've again, like, because I've done so many interviews and been to so many shows and things, like, all of them know who I am now. which is nice. Like I had Trent Seven be my first professional caller on my radio show last week, so that was also nice. And yeah, like I said, I've seen them so much at this point that they know that I'm not some joke, for want of a better term. They know I'm serious about covering it and all of that stuff. And yeah, like again, even Pete, like I spoke to Pete in Texas this past week, but I've had him so many times. So it was cool to that they were so receptive. Trent is such a personality, like he really is, and I'm not dressing that up for anything else. Like he really is. And Tyler actually has more personality than people think. I know he's not a fantastic talker on the mic, but he's another one. Like in and around the gym, he was really good fun and a good laugh. So maybe it's just translating that to the screen, or it might be the fact that Trent is such a big personality that they just kind of let him do the heavy lifting, But it was really good. They were really good to me, and like I said, I've interviewed them a lot, but that probably, for want of a better term, bonded us more than anything, because you're working out together and talking and doing the sets and pushing each other. So yeah, it was really cool, an experience that not many would be afforded. So it's not, I do greatly appreciate it.
So basically, you're now the fourth member of British Strong Style.
Essentially, mate. Essentially, like I don't. Once Eddie Dennis gets me up to scratch, I'm right there.
But is WWE actually destroying the indie scene right now? You can see that a lot on Twitter these days, because they signed pretty much everyone who's got talent in the British scene right now.
I've never really understood this. Like, that's the nature of the business, is it not? Like the top the top promotions will, the talent, cream rises to the top, and the talent will go on to work for the biggest companies. That
but it's also a competition now, because, like, I mean, it's WWE, but NXT still has this indie kind of vibe.
Yes, of course. I mean, and I think that works in its favour, where the takeover shows are something of their own. But from my perspective, Progress is still going fine. A lot of talent there. As we, I mean, you could say, okay, like there's a glory period before before NXT UK kind of thing. Like, let's kind of dial it back to the Hello Wembley show, where you've got Walter and Tyler Bate. And then that is going to be TakeOver Cardiff's main event. Now, to anyone who saw the Wembley show, you knew what you were getting, and that was, what Progress had to be able to promote a match like that. And then to see that WWE have taken that match shows you exactly how good it was, right? Like, the talent for one, but the stage and everything like that. But it's not as if, I don't think Progress are bereft of talent now. And these things come in waves. OTT being the same, Jordan Devlin being a big expat from that. Rev Pro, obviously ICW still has a lot of the NXT UK talent there, because a lot of the indies that are associated with WWE, like ICW and Progress, they get a lot of the talent in, right? Like, so I think earlier last year, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly came over. Keith Lee came over, both, and all did Progress. So, and I think that was when maybe David Starr and I don't know. Like, basically, there's a lot of talent, is what I'm getting at, and WWE still filters a lot of their talent out to these promotions to keep them strong.
I completely agree with you that they're not killing the indies. I just think that people on the internet, when they're writing this, it's not just like neckbeards complaining. Right. There is a basis for that. I mean, the indie promotions are suffering a bit, and especially Progress. I love Progress, but it feels a bit like selling out for the big company. They had this punk rock attitude, and now they're the pet of WWE.
I mean, I can't deny that, but at the same time, it's kind of a company in transition, right?
Yeah, sure.
Is it Jim Smallman who's moved on, or one of them has at the very top? I can't remember. You correct me if I'm wrong there, but they are kind of changing a lot of way. And then, of course, if WWE are involved, like you said, it's a bit, you might say a sellout, but at the same time, like business is business. Things evolve. You can't really blame them for getting involved with WWE.
No, sure.
So it's a very tough one, but I totally understand both ends of the spectrum. But in terms of the wrestlers, there's never been a better gateway to the big time. There never has, right? And the fact that WWE subsidizes or supplements these promotions that they work with means that they're being paid better than they've ever done as well. I mean, I'm not going to get into Evolve, but whatever going on with Gabe Sapolsky is his business. But generally speaking, as far as I'm aware in the UK, the conditions for a wrestler have never kind of been better. So, wrestlers are welcome to call me wrong if that's how they feel. But as far as I know, the WWE has kind of breathed life from a worker's perspective in the scene. I get it that the fans, though, might be losing things that they want. It's basically how I felt when kind of the Attitude Era passed by, and then we 10 years later in the PG era, and I was like, well, where was the wrestling that I really loved? Because that's what I knew. Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't mean I'm not a wrestling fan anymore, and then wrestling is dead. So,
and I think we as fans all want our favorite wrestlers to succeed.
Yeah.
So they're in WWE now. It's their dream, probably. And I also think that it would be worse for Progress if they would have declined the deal.
Yes,
with
much
WWE.
Worse. Much worse. Because they just would have been gutted.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
They didn't own Pete Dunne and the others.
No, they
just booked him.
They just would have been stripped of what they had.
Yeah,
right. Whereas now, okay, Pete Dunne's probably not getting sent back there too often, but WWE does still feed them enough talent to kind of to keep it interesting and move tickets. So, and like you said, there's new talent all the time in the UK, in the States. It's not like the buck stops with British Strong Style and Eddie Dennis and Mark Andrews and whatnot. That is obviously a great crop of talent. But these things, as I said earlier, they come in waves.
You just mentioned David Starr a couple of minutes ago and Gabe Sapolsky. So what do you think of David Starr and his opinion on corporate wrestling?
I mean, this is a really hard one to get into and dissect because there are so many layers. But I understand what David Starr means. That whole the independent movement, though, is, I mean, and I know Pete Dunne and others have been very vocal as in opposition of what they think, right? Well, they would do because they work for WWE. But I just think, for what I know of Gabe Sapolsky and what he was doing with Evolve, that is wrong. Okay? You can't. He was essentially saying people should be grateful to be on his card for the exposure and thus don't need money. That is a ludicrous take. That is obscene, especially in wrestling where a lot of it is, however much of traveling and people are earning next to nothing anyway, and then you're saying a company that's affiliated with WWE that you're not going to pay people for certain spots on the card. I think that is a disgrace, to be honest. And obviously, like you said, someone like David Starr, he has campaigned for the rights of workers to get better treatment. I'm trying to think of a more all-encompassing word that isn't unionized, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm getting at, and I think that can only be right. But it's just I don't know. There's, like I said, I don't think I can actually break it down in all its entirety in this podcast now. Like, there's so many different ways to look at it. But in that specific case, if we're referring to Gabe Sapolsky, I can tell you that David Starr would be right and Gabe Sapolsky would be wrong. What's your take on that?
So now, before we get too political here, I don't ask you if you think if wrestlers should unionize or something like that. Don't worry.
Okay.
How happy are you with the Rumble winners?
Obviously very happy with Drew. And I'm all for seeing Brock face someone new, because there was like a little 2-year gap where it was just Rollins and Reigns pretty much. Or Strowman chucked in every now and again. I'm all for seeing him have new but believable competitors. Now, Lesnar had Balor, Styles, Bryan, and they were all great matches, but we knew that they weren't going to win them. Do you know what I mean? Like Brock can work with smaller guys.
Although Bryan made me believe he can do it.
Yeah, well, and I'll add Rey Mysterio into that mix as well. Obviously he can have good matches, but at the same time, at no point did I ever really think, they're going to have Brock lose this. And that's not really Brock's fault. It's just the WWE way. But when I look at Drew, I believe that he can win. Like, the way he's being presented right now, the guy is legit, like 6'6", shredded, like really, really shredded. He believably could give Lesnar a really tough day at the office, right? So I'm happy that they've moved in that direction. Could be the first British winner, which is also appealing to me in terms of a first British champion. So that also has its appeal. When it comes to Charlotte, it's it's a two-sided thing, right? Now I'm a big Charlotte fan. I just don't know if she needed to win it.
Yeah, right? Same with me.
There's nothing wrong with having the best win it every now and again. Do you know what I mean? Like Austin won it 3 times. Probably didn't need to win it 3 times, did he? But there's nothing wrong with the best winning it. And I get it that they would want Charlotte to have that on her resume at some point. I can understand that. But this story of her then going to challenge Rhea Ripley, I get it that in WWE's eyes, they probably think that the Rumble winner challenging an NXT title brings prestige and attention to NXT. Okay, I get it. But Charlotte could just outright challenge Rhea Ripley. Like, we don't need a whole Rumble win to set that up. Shayna Baszler probably would have benefited more from winning the Rumble and challenging Becky, I think.
Yeah, and I think also, we know NXT's great. Absolutely, and WWE wants to push it more, but it feels like a step back for Charlotte. It's not the world title, right?
Did you feel that did WWE not make it clear enough at Survivor Series that NXT is great?
Yeah, but I have to say, you infected me with the McIntyre virus.
Oh, yeah?
You were, before the Rumble, you were tweeting the entire time like, Drew would be a great challenger and something like that. And there are rumors, Drew, and how they present him on Raw this time. And it was like, yeah, it would be pretty great.
Yeah. But that's what people were saying, no, Drew won't win the Rumble. But you just have to... Sometimes you look at the booking on Raw and see the way that people are being presented and say, well, they obviously have plans for this person. You don't head into Mania season just giving arbitrary wins to people, right? Yeah. And the way he was winning and the character shift where they kind of made him a babyface, also the juxtaposition against Brock, that makes a lot of sense. And people were going, well, maybe Ricochet will win the Rumble. Why? Because he can't, it's like saying R-Truth was going to win it. It was just... people clutch at straws, I think. But educated guesses are something, Christian.
Drew, I think it's great what they're doing with him, but it felt a little bit, like they started the build up a little bit too short before the Rumble.
Yeah, I hear you.
You could... notice that they're trying to do something with him, that they want to push him and present him in the right way. But it's really great how they handled it in the Rumble, how they built this up. But and I really like this matchup, but something feels odd about it.
I know what you mean. And I think that it's very crucial that they tap into McIntyre and his character in the coming what are we 2 months away?
Yeah,
roughly. So they've got about 8-9 weeks of TV. They need to really tap into why and who he is and how he's going to beat Lesnar. And I feel like they've brought out a little bit more of his personality in recent weeks. But like you said, that could have started earlier. But they are sort of trying to make him now. I still think if he beats Lesnar, he'd probably be a heel by the end of the year. Because I just don't. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't anticipate McIntyre being a long-term babyface. As much as I'm enjoying him in that role, he either loses it and turns heel, through frustration or whatever later on, or to stay the champion he becomes a heel. He works better as a nasty bastard, I think, and that's what I mean. Like
yes, like Rollins.
Yeah, and I feel like that's absolutely. And I feel like with Lesnar, the WWE have constantly booked it as underdog versus Lesnar. Constantly, right? Like, apart from Strowman, really, they haven't presented anyone who was like, oh, this guy could feasibly take on Lesnar. But for once with McIntyre, they are. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. But also how the match would deliver at WrestleMania, because I've seen the same Brock dominates, fiery babyface comeback. Brock looks like he actually might lose, but then he wins. I've seen that a lot, right?
Yeah.
But I wonder what they'll do with Drew versus Brock.
I say Drew wins. I'm pretty sure about it, actually.
Yes.
But he will lose the title around SummerSlam against Rollins. If his Messiah gimmick works out so well until then,
no, I agree.
He will be the champion again.
But I mean, that's kind of like that's almost the testing ground of a first reign, isn't it? They give you a few months to find your groove and see how it fits, and then SummerSlam comes along, cheerio. That's pretty much what they did to Benoit in his first and only reign, and then Orton took it off him at SummerSlam. But it's an interesting one. What they see, I guess it all depends on how it catches fire, because you've got to remember, after Mania, maybe 3 weeks later, they have the European tour, which would be like a huge babyface homecoming for Drew as the first British champion.
Yeah, sure.
So I feel like they'll do that, maximise it for all it is, and then, like you said, it's anyone's guess where they go from there.
Yeah, it could be. And I think it depends on the Saudi prince.
Oh God,
if he likes Drew, maybe he can keep the title a little longer.
Yeah, I was about to say, you got to remember with Brock, like, I don't know how long his deal is now, but he'll never be too far away from that picture. Just and then WWE have been trying to do it for years, where they use Brock to make another star, right? I don't know how many times you can do that. Have Brock be on the top of the mountain and then have someone come in to knock him down. They did it with Reigns. They did it with Rollins. They've done it with McIntyre. Well, they're going to do it with McIntyre. How many times can you do that to Lesnar? I don't know.
We just mentioned Roman Reigns. Will he go against The Fiend one-on-one, or will there be a triple threat for WrestleMania?
I'm almost certain it'll be him versus The Fiend. The only thing... So I'd say I'm 90% certain it'll be Reigns versus The Fiend, but that 10% is the Daniel Bryan story is not quite over, I guess. Like, just the Fiend.
No story in SmackDown is over anytime.
No,
we still
true.
got the dog food story. They're dragging it out for WrestleMania.
Well, yeah. And now the Dirtsheets back. It's all happening. But yeah, with Reigns, I feel like that's always been the direction. They were just kind of slowly building him, and then they're going to insert him against The Fiend. For Bryan, The Fiend hasn't really definitively changed him like he did Balor and Rollins and etc. But then what do you do with Bryan if you don't have him involved in that? It's the IC title, I guess, but then that looks like it'll be Braun and Sheamus, perhaps.
Oh God.
Yeah, well, I know on paper that sounds like something, doesn't it? But maybe they'll do like a multi-man thing for the IC title that they've done in years past. They might do, and if that is the case, you could put Brian in there, but it'd be a bit of a shame and a waste because he's the kind of guy who deserves a featured program. So I'd actually like him to be a part of this Fiend Roman match and angle because I feel like there's different layers to explore there, and of course Roman and Brian is a cool little thing to call back to as well. But not only that, the Fiend matches have become pretty formulaic where he kind of takes a load of finishes and then he fucks them up. Do you know what I mean? Like that's I don't know how many times I want to see the Fiend do that. Maybe a 3-man can plausibly make it more interesting, and then it'll add a bit of intrigue because he doesn't have to be pinned, so the title could change hands. And I feel like there's something to explore there. But if they just straight up have Roman become the cookie cutter babyface, the first man to beat the Fiend, I think they're asking for booze.
Yes, and also I think the match would be quite bad.
How many Superman punches are you going to be forced to watch?
And I always hate matches where Roman is presented as the underdog who has to fight back and wait for his comeback in a match.
He's a big guy.
Yeah, it doesn't suit him.
No, I agree. He should be a badass man who just tries to steamroll people. Yeah, I get it that the formula of babyface and heel, I get it, but too often it's like everything's against Roman here. How will he overcome this? And I feel like WWE, that's a very stale presentation that Cena was handcuffed to that for so long.
Yeah. They can't do real baby faces. They can't get them over right.
I don't think they really exist anymore. Like, if you...
They shouldn't exist anymore.
No.
It's not the time for classic baby faces anymore.
It's not at all. And that's the problem, is that they try and make people too likable, but people don't want to like people. Like, they don't. Like, you look at Hulk Hogan, right, in the 80s. Imagine that today. He'd be panned. He would be panned. But I still think in Vince's head, he thinks that's what, that is like the biggest form of over. But look at the biggest stars in the business, in the history of the business, right? Austin, he was like the anti-hero, right? He just did what he wanted. He was rude.
Yeah.
Like
The Rock came over by being an asshole.
Same as that. The Rock was just so entertaining and so good at being a dickhead that people loved it. I loved him. You look. That is what I'm saying. Like, even Cena, when his rise to popularity was when he was absolutely mugging people off in his rap gimmick. Like, that's when he was really over. And you think WWE just seems to think that their top babyface has to be this super nice, good guy, philanthropist, weirdo. It's not. It's not. Like, people. Look, Becky Lynch, the way she got over, becoming the man. She's become a lot more of a dulled version of that now. She's a lot nicer, as I'm sure you've noticed. Yeah. But when she was meant to be a heel, really, in the early going. She was just being nasty. Had a new attitude. That's what people want to see. People want to see entertaining stars who get shit done, like can go in the ring. That's also important. Look at Punk, how he got over. Look at Brian. I feel like that they don't appreciate what people actually want in this day and age. They present to them what they think they will want, and times have changed.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just black and white. Characters need some edges, and
yes.
Always when Aleister Black is on TV, I'm just thinking to myself, please don't fuck it up. Please don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Like, oh God, don't make him a babyface. It's you just don't want to cheer for Ned Flanders.
No.
And every WWE babyface in the main event region is like Ned Flanders.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like the very tippy top star they think has to be that way, which is very, it's very counterproductive. The thing is, this is everything. I don't like WWE's. This person can't be turned. Like Roman can't be turned. Cena can't be turned. I don't get that. Why? like, if you're a good heel and you give the people what they want and you flip them, it's only a matter of time before they cheer them anyway, right? And you get back to where you need to be, but a nuanced character. So, look at The Rock when he turned Hollywood Rock in 2003. That was some of the most entertaining shit you'd ever see. But it wasn't long before the crowd couldn't deny, even though they were mad at him that he was leaving for Hollywood and not doing full time anymore. It was only a matter of time before they flipped him again, because you can't deny it. It's too good, right? And it's the same with like Kevin Owens, with a Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
They're so good at being that heel.
Although I really like Owens as babyface now.
Yeah, me too. And what the point I'm getting at is that Rollins too. He had that run of babyface in 2018 that I loved. He was knocking it out of the park every night in those gauntlet matches and the IC title. Because when you have such a good run as a heel, fans are ready to cheer for them. Same as when Triple H went away with a quad injury. Biggest heel in the business, comes back, people are delighted to see him, right? You look at Samoa Joe, he's only turned face recently, but people were ready for it, right? People were like, they've waited long enough to be able to cheer for Joe properly.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the program you're getting as a babyface. Like Becky Lynch, she's not as over as she was at the beginning of being the man, or maybe she got some of this overness back now. But her feuds were so boring.
Oh man, well, like you said, you had Charlotte and Ronda. That's obviously massive for the first part.
Yeah,
and it takes off around Survivor Series. Partly because of the broken nose and the bloody image of, and then she was tapping Ronda out, like that was a hot finish to Raw, right? Yeah. But then after Mania, that's your apex, beating Ronda Rousey in main event, and then you've Lacey Evans for 3 months. And no disrespect to Lacey Evans, right? She's good in her own space, but she's not. That's not what people want.
It's no threat.
No, exactly, and that's the problem, right? Because I get, I'll say this phrase a few times now. I get what WWE are thinking. Oh, it'll raise Lacey up. It doesn't really do that because fans don't believe or want her to win, right? So, but whereas back in the day, and I keep doing this, and we're talking about early 2000s, you could have The Rock face Kurt Angle, Steve Austin, Undertaker, Kane, Jericho, Benoit. There's a whole list of people that you could believe and want to see. Whereas after WrestleMania, and you got no Sasha Banks, got no Nia Jax, you got no. I'm not saying they're the answer, especially with Nia, but just in general, like they were depleted, and they're forced to go. Well, let's just take a gamble on Lacey Evans, but that didn't help anyone, in my opinion.
Yeah, and also the Rollins run wasn't that good because of his rivals at that time. But now Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe, it works.
Yes,
because Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy, especially, I love this guy.
Yes,
are such mean assholes. Yeah? you want them to lose.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said as well, I think it works because I've waited for Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe to be baby faces for a while. Like they've been with the company for 4 or 5 years. They've never really been in babyface roles, so I think it's the right time. So it's a good dynamic, and you're going to get great in-ring work too, which is obviously very important. So it ticks all the boxes, which is a rarity, to be honest.
So to close this podcast, you can tell us your favorite anecdote from your trip to the Royal Rumble, and also you can tell us how much difference it makes to see or to experience the Rumble live and in person, and not just in front of the TV.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for me, being at the Rumble. So being at the Rumble itself, I was staying at the same hotel as the talent. So, like I said, you see Christian. I remember getting into a lift, and Nikki Cross was there. And funnily enough, Nikki Cross had WWE had reached out to me after I made a tweet after interviewing Nikki Cross. And they were like, Nikki's not sure what you mean by this. And I think she thought I meant that something slanderous towards Sanity. Remember? She was in Sanity.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that. I was just teasing an interview for people to tune in the next day. So I just had to delete the tweet in the end. But that was the first, that was the first time that I'd seen her. So I was like, oh, we kind of laughed about it. So, that was nice to make up of her because she is probably the nicest person in the world. So, yeah, that was always cool. The little interactions around the hotel with the talent and things. But as far as the Rumble goes, like to me, man, I mean, the atmosphere was just crazy. And I think I'm trying to look at it objectively, but I'm saying that this is one of the best Rumbles, maybe the best men's Rumble ever. Maybe it's in the discussion, okay. And a lot of people are kind of saying, yeah, 92 and all of this stuff. Like, okay, that's fine, but and I wonder if I feel that way because I was there, right? And when the Drew McIntyre Claymore moment to Lesnar was massive, like the atmosphere, it was tangible, and then the Rumble was so good and so well placed and had so many stories in it that when Edge's music hit, I even really forgot that Edge was going to be there. Like, I, for the first time in ages, I felt surprised as a fan, and it just it hit all the right buttons. It was such a sad day because of Kobe Bryant's death, but the Rumble did a whole 180 on my emotions, and I really didn't think it could, but it was so good. So good. And I just implore anyone. I've been to that was the first Rumble I've ever been to, but I've done a couple of WrestleManias, SummerSlam, Rumble, Survivor Series still on my list. But having done those, I can honestly say I think maybe the Rumble was the most fun I'd ever had. Like that hour of the men's match was unbelievable. And I only say that WrestleMania is amazing, but as you know, it's long. Like 7 hours is a long time to kind of.
You really have to plan when to go to the restroom.
Yeah,
I knew every one of the Americans wanted to see Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania 34.
Yes,
so I waited for her entrance theme to go. Yeah. Only me and I think two other guys.
No, that's what I mean. I'm the same. Mania is amazing, but honestly, in Orlando at WrestleMania 33, my eyes were starting to go when Taker and Reigns were in the main event. Like, I wanted to watch it, but my body was saying you're really tired. And I was just like, oh man, I was actually fighting.
But maybe because you and Bobby drank a little bit the night before.
How dare you question my professionalism? How dare you? You got to enjoy yourself. You got to enjoy yourself on these trips.
I mean, you could walk, yeah, but Bobby.
Yeah, that shaky camera.
With every step to the stadium, he was dying a little bit more inside.
No, that one. Yeah, you're right. I think it was Orlando. Actually, you're right. We had a meal before going to there, right? And he was awful. He was so hungover. He could. I was hanging, but not to the level that he was. And then he went to the toilet for a legit 30 minutes, which is so long. Where you're seriously, what's happened to him? It was tough for him. God, the memories.
Before we close, you can plug anything you want, right?
Oh God, I've got too much to plug, Christian. So of course, hit me on Twitter at @AlexM_TalkSport. I'm always down to talk wrestling if you are a sensible human being. I've got my own YouTube channel, which is Alex McCarthy. Search me out on YouTube and you will find me. All of my interviews go on there. I did over 100 wrestling interviews in 2019. I dare say I'll do more this year, so plenty of content to gobble up. Recently, so tomorrow on TalkSport 2, you can download on the app if you're in Germany. We have a call-in show, a wrestling show where fans get to call in and give me their terrible takes. That is called Talk Wrestling. That's at 6 till 7 UK time. So you can find that on the TalkSport app. And for all the stories that I write, TalkSport.com. So I believe I sound like a real entrepreneur right now, but I believe that's all of the platforms that I've got that you guys need to hit up.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. I'm switching back to German. Vielen Dank, dass ihr zugehört habt. Sorry für mein teilweise etwas holpriges Englisch. Ich bin ein wenig krank, daran liegt's, und eingerostet bin ich auch ein bisschen. Aber ich hoffe, ihr hattet trotzdem Spaß und folgt Alex auf Twitter, abonniert seinen YouTube-Kanal, ist ein guter Typ und der verbreitet auch keinen Mist, wie ihr gehört habt. Der spricht wirklich mit den Leuten und hat einiges zu verkünden. Bis dahin, ciao!
Headlock, der Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Makes me want to learn German.
I just told them they should follow you on Twitter and your YouTube channel.
Yes, I very nearly chimed in and just said, "Ich liebe dich," and that was about it. But that's all I know. That's all I know.